Welcome back to our read aloud on aliens for breakfast. We are about to get started on chapter 3. If you remember, chapter 2, Dorf was showing off his math skills in the classroom and impressing everyone. And then they go to lunch, and Richard's very best friend, who he always switches sandwiches with, has switched with the Dorf and has made plans with him for the weekend. Let's see what happens next. Chapter 3. All day, Richard kept waiting for Eric to remember what the secret weapon was. But Eric didn't remember. Instead, he complained. He whined about having to stay in Richard's pocket. He made rude remarks about the classes he had to sit in. The only time he stopped complaining was during gym. Then he sat in the pocket of Richard's shorts and didn't make a sound. After gym, he confessed that the smell of the basketball reminded him of Ingvar, his girlfriend on Ganoob. But at last, the school day was almost over. Only Art was left, Richard's favorite. He had been working for weeks on a drawing of the Starship Enterprise. Now it was nearly finished. He settled down and got to work. Using a silver crayon, he drew in one last fin on the ship's side. "Isn't this great?" he asked Eric silently. Now that he knew he could send thoughts to the little alien, he was beginning to like it. There he is working on his artwork. "Primitive," answered Eric. "Besides, interspace beaming is much cheaper." "But what if you don't know exactly where you're going? Captain Kirk never has a destination. He spends his time on the Enterprise exploring space, looking for strange new worlds." "Get real. We have enough problems with the worlds we know already about, thanks to our friends the Drains. In case you have forgotten." Richard threw down his crayon. "How could I forget it?" he said out loud. Too late. He remembered that sending the thought silently. What if someone in class heard him talking to himself? They would think he was crazy. But no one even looked at him. His whole class was watching in silence as Dorf worked on his art project. Richard wondered why everyone was so impressed. After all, it was only a little white paper pyramid. Mrs. Logan walked over to Dorf's desk. Dorf smiled one of his big smiles at her. Her eyes got a little funny and glassy as she smiled back. "How beautiful," she said to Dorf. "So three-dimensional." Henry was sitting next to Dorf. He stared at Dorf's pyramid for a long time. Then he stared at his own crayon drawing of two dinosaurs. Then he looked back at Dorf's pyramid again. "Mrs. Logan, can I make something new?" he asked. "What would you like to make, Henry?" asked Mrs. Logan. Something three-dimensional, like Dorf." "What a nice idea," said Mrs. Logan. "Of course, go ahead." Then Celia raised her hand. She was drawing a picture of dancing jelly beans. "Me too," she said. "Me too," said Jennifer, Ruth, Philip, George, Leroy, Fawn, Don, Sean, and Tristam. Mrs. Logan looked pleased. "If you'd all like to try something new, go right ahead," she said. The whole class got up. They walked to the supply table and took what was left of the white paper. Then they walked back to their seats and began making little white pyramids. They looked like a bunch of robots, thought Richard. Mrs. Logan came over to him. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "Don't you want to try something new?" "Not really," said Richard. "I haven't finished my starship yet." Suddenly Mrs. Logan leaned closer. "What's that on your hand?" she asked. "Are you bleeding?" Richard looked at his fingers. Yikes! The tips were bright red. Blood was oozing out from under his fingertips. Richard grabbed his hand. "How did this happen? I didn't cut myself, I'm sure of it." Out of the corner of his eye he saw Dorf smile. "Why?" "Do not look at his teeth," Eric told him. "Get out of class." "You'd better go to the nurse," said Mrs. Logan. "She'll take care of you." Richard stood, holding his hand up stiffly. Henry tore his eyes away from his pyramid. "Does it hurt?" he asked. "Nah," said Richard, as if it were no big deal. The truth was, it didn't hurt, but it scared him. He knew he hadn't cut himself. Or had he? "You did not," Eric told him on the way to the nurse's office. "I am sorry to have to break this to you. Dorf knows you are resisting him, so he is pulling a cheap drain trick. He is rearranging your molecules. You are melting." Richard stopped in his tracks. "Melting?" Well, dissolving is more like it, said Eric. Your molecules are drifting apart, slowly, of course. They were outside the nurse's office. This is terrible, moaned Richard. How had he ever thought getting to know an alien would be fun? He felt like throwing up. It will not get much worse today or tomorrow, said Eric, but I hope you do not have big plans for the weekend. Richard whimpered. Once I remember the secret weapon, I can destroy Dorf. Then you will be fine, said Eric. But what if you don't remember? If I do not remember, said Eric, Earth will be so deep in drains that dissolving will be fun. That ends chapter 3 of our little story. I wonder what's going to happen next. Can't wait to see you back soon. Bye.